Hello and welcome to another episode of Movies That Make Us. I'm Jake.
I'm Tracy.
And I'm Val.
And Valerie, where are you this week?
I'm in Miami. Miami.
See, I couldn't pull off the
following me everywhere. A couple weeks ago, I was in, where was I? Oh my gosh, I've been everywhere.
LA.
Well, no, that was last week, but the week before that,
Chicago?
Everywhere I've gone for the last week, like week after week, I am in a heat warning.
So you're the cause.
I went to Pennsylvania, heat warning. It was the hottest it's been since 1930. I go home for 3 days, super hot. I go to LA, where you'd think that it's the same, pretty much same temperature all year round. Heat warning. I get here to Miami. It was not this hot last year when I was here. I went to do a jog 2 mornings ago at 7 a.m. It was already 86 degrees and 65% humidity. I thought I was going to die just trying to breathe.
Yeah. I don't know how people run in Florida.
I mean, they're acclimated.
Still.
Yeah. So I've been, they reopened the gym today because it was under renovation. And so I went and I did my running in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's where I like to do my walking, is inside. I like to go over to the Olympic Oval. They added the ice back to the oval this week, and so it's much cooler in there than it even was before. You've been running on the ice? No, that's dangerous. For me, I'm not coordinated enough to do that. No, I just walk around. There's a track around the ice that I like to walk on.
There is a football league in Germany where they play football on an ice rink, and they have like regular shoes. It's not with skates. So you get like the feet going like a cartoon character trying to get traction.
I'm like, that sounds like an old Disney cartoon back in the day.
Warner Brother Disney cartoon. Yeah, and it's so much fun to watch. Like, I haven't watched the full game, but I've seen clips online, and I'm like, this is awesome.
Now, when you say in Germany and you say football, I just need a little clarification. Is this American football or soccer?
Football.
Okay.
American football, not the football. Yeah, so they're doing the forward pass. Okay. They're like handing it off to the running back, and they're trying to get around the edge, and people are falling down, and it's awesome.
Yeah, well, that's just Green Bay Packers in December. That's what their field typically looks like.
Huh.
Well, it's not cold here, but at least it's a dry heat here in Salt Lake. I mean, we've got this.
See, I would rather have the moist heat.
Anything over 100 is awful. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, I mean,
I will take dry over humidity myself. So
how do you want to be cooked? Do you want to be boiled like a lobster, or just like baked like a pizza?
He's just really, really good at staying frozen, kind of like in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's still that maybe we don't even see that he's there.
Oh, that's a good one.
I want to thank you for like doing pretty much the whole summer on Good Things Utah for me. I'm really bummed though. Like, this is my busy time of year.
Yeah.
And so this is when I'm getting all the gigs, and it sucks because I'm missing all of the good movies that are coming up. I'm missing Twister. I'm missing Wolverine. I'm missing, what else am I missing? I just missed Fly Me to the Moon, which I'm so excited about.
Yeah.
So I have so many movies to catch up on.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try and see some while I'm out here. What?
Yeah. On top of any others that come out during that time period.
Yeah. So hopefully I get to catch up. But if you're watching Good Things Utah and wondering where I am, this is just, there is 8 weeks out of the year where I'm not home. I gotta make the monies.
Making the bills. No, yep. I'm happy to fill in, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I was supposed to be there this next week, coming up, but I fly in on Monday night. The next morning, they just put me on an event for the WNBA. So I fly out the next morning to Arizona, go into Arizona, directly to work, do all the things, and then fly back home the next morning. I'll be able to have lunch with you and Dina, and then Friday I will be home, but I can't do the show because I haven't seen any of the movies. And then Friday night, Sammy and I are going on a poetry trip, and we're going to Boston and then Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's cool.
And then I'm home for a week, and then D23, baby. D23.
Well,
just
at least
this little thing called D23.
Yeah. At least you're going to Arizona, and it should be cooler there. The heat should stop following you there. So it should be fine. No worries at all.
I'm just trying to one up everywhere I've gone, right?
Yeah.
Going from Pittsburgh to LA to Miami to Arizona. Boston and Baltimore will probably be muggy, but not like awful.
Yeah.
And then Anaheim should be Anaheim, right? It shouldn't be crazy.
The way you're going, though.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the heat with me.
Bringing the heat.
Bringing the heat.
I like it. D23 should be interesting this year. I hope it'll be a lot of fun. I'm always excited to see your pictures and experiences from the convention. So
it's interesting to see what will happen, because this is when they make all of the announcements for, what's going to be coming, and it hasn't been like great, what we've gotten so far, as one or two things here and there. They've been teasing a bunch of things over the last week about new shows that we've been waiting for, so it'll be interesting to see what it looks like. I don't think it's going to be a full track like we used to get. We used to get like 4 years out, 5 years out sometimes of this is what we're doing. And I think they're going to be being a little more cautious with what they give us.
Yeah. And now that Anaheim's officially approved the plans for their expansion, hopefully we might get a few hints as to what they're going to do there.
Yeah, as far as the park goes, for sure.
Yeah.
This year at D23, they're going to be at 2 different locations. So if you're going, make sure that you know in advance that the convention and the entertainment part of it, like where they do the panels and all the extras, are going to be at 2 different buildings. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. They're trying to make it take up a little more footprint than they usually do. So you're not just going to be going to one place and being at that one place. It's Disney. You're going to be walking around and yeah.
So they'll probably talk about what they're going to do with the expansion in Anaheim, Tracy. But I feel like since Galaxy's Edge, I got so burned because they showed so many amazing things that were going to happen at Galaxy's Edge. And then, I love Galaxy's Edge. Still my favorite. Like, I love that part of the park, but it's not what it could have been.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You look at the stuff that they released and it was like, oh, that would have been so cool. And then it just never materialized.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you do?
I'm sure they'll have like stuff from WandaVision, or the Agatha Harkness series. What else is coming? Bette Midler was saying she wants to do Hocus Pocus 3, so I don't know if that would ever
just
come about.
Because she wants to doesn't mean we should.
Well, and it's possible with Deadpool. It's possible with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out that, depending on what happens in that, they may make announcements about like X-Men or other properties that we've been waiting to hear about.
I thought you were going to do like a Wolverine Hocus Pocus mashup. That is something I'd pay for.
Deadpool could pull it off. Deadpool kind of goes wherever he wants, so he could end up with the Sanderson sisters. You never know.
Oh man, that'd be funny. Sanderson sisters unplugged and unhinged.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what they announce. I'm hoping they just announce more great Star Wars television like The Acolyte. That's what I'm hoping for, is more of that, please.
It's a sinking ship, but I'm the captain almost. I feel like I'm bound to go down with this thing. And
are you continuing to watch it?
Yeah, yeah.
You're committed.
Episode 7 was a repeat of episode 3, with
which was really popular.
A few other things thrown in, but basically half of the 44-minute episode was everything we had already seen before.
Gross.
So,
how did this get made?
I have no idea. And like we've talked about this, I don't want to be the angry Star Wars person, and I don't feel that I am, but this is just
you're an angry put a story together well and tell it well person. It has nothing to do with Star Wars and everything to do with
not a good story.
Complete your thought before you make a show.
Right.
You know, that's the one thing I really love. Well, more than one thing. It's one of the things I really love about Ted Lasso. And there's also a new series coming out, not Ted Lasso, but I can't think of what it's called right now. Sorry. It's Late Where I Am. But Ted Lasso said, we are going to write these 3 seasons. They wrote it.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
They made it. And that was it. They had a complete thought for all the seasons before they even made the show. And they stuck to it. They didn't say, oh, we're making a lot of money and it's super popular, so maybe we should make up other storylines to go along with it. And there are some new series coming out that are following in that footsteps. And I wish more shows would do that instead of like, let's write something and hope it sticks. But you need, and Tracy, we've talked about this before. When you put together a story of any kind, start backwards. What is your end product? Where do you want it to go? And then you work your way backwards on how you got there. But if you don't even know how it ends, which I feel like the Acolyte is, like, we're just going to try and find some cool characters. We're going to put them in some somewhat cool costumes. We're going to bring out some lightsabers. Everything's going to be fine. Not one thought.
Yeah,
not
there's
one
episode left. And yeah, I mean, I saw an interview with the showrunner, and the original plan was once the bad guy was revealed, that was going to be the end of his story until season 2. And I'm like, you can't count on season 2. You've got to tell a really good season 1.
It would be different if you led up to something. It would be different if you were like, oh, I see where this could be going, and you get people there and you're like, oh, the end. But right now we're like, oh, the end.
Yeah. And I can appreciate when that's done really well, when you're watching a series and it builds up to the last episode or last couple of episodes of the season, and that's when the big reveal happens. But I think when it does it well, it's when you get little pieces of it, little tidbits throughout the season that make it worth coming back. You may not get the big reveal until the very end, but you get minor reveals along the line. I feel like with this, and they could have done that with this, right? If we didn't know from the very beginning that she was actually 2 people and not just one person.
Yeah.
And that was kind of revealed halfway through. And then you find out about the Acolyte piece, and you find out about like, I feel like they could have done that, but they didn't. They're all relying on this big reveal that's going to come at the end, which is, I mean, spoilers, going to be Van Estra was bad all along, and that she was the one that whipped the guy with her laser sword whip.
It was Van Estra all along. Oh, doesn't quite ring.
That doesn't have the same ring to it. So, and I just feel like they've been relying on that big reveal all the time, and it just, I don't know.
Tracy, will you explain to everybody what a showrunner is? Because we bring this up in the show a lot, mainly you, but I don't know that we've ever explained to our audience what a showrunner is.
So a showrunner is basically kind of like the creative force behind the piece. They're not necessarily doing all of the writing, but they're kind of like, if you're familiar with the Marvel setup, it's a Kevin Feige type of role. This is the person who is like the head of creative. They are the ones who are telling people this is what our vision is. This is what we're going to make it look like. This is the story we're going to tell. And then everything goes through them before it goes onto screen. So they see what are the props going to look like? What's the wardrobe going to look like? So it's almost like a
Yeah.
director. They may or may not direct certain episodes, but they're kind of directing the entire show as it's being produced.
They're running the show.
Yeah,
They're the showrunner.
That's very clever. I think
a
a
lot of
really
people
good.
bring it up. They're like, "What's a trailer? What's a showrunner? What's a?" And we say all these words, and we just assume that you know. And so I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think a really good example of a good showrunner would be like on Doctor Who, with you had Russell T Davies followed by Stephen Moffat, and there was a big difference between Russell T Davies Doctor Who and Stephen Moffat Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
And you can just tell where that creative vision paints a picture. I mean, Matt Smith's time with Stephen Moffat and the story they were trying to tell, there was an overall story, creative vision, everything was building toward it. A good showrunner can make a show very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Vince Gilligan doing Breaking Bad. He only directed a handful of episodes, but that was his vision all the way through. Damon Lindelof on Watchmen, who's now doing the Lanterns series. He's not the showrunner, but he's writing it for HBO. So I'm excited about that one.
Yeah.
We are going to get into, I think we're going to be talking about a pretty good series, and I am going to call it a series because I feel like this movie was 3 episodes that were really great that could work by themselves, but they're 3 separate movies. The more I have thought about these movies over the past 2 weeks, the more I appreciate the thoughtfulness, and we're talking about The Quiet Place, day 1. But I kind of want to go over before we get into day 1. We're talking about writing. We're talking about full thoughts. We're talking about going to the end and understanding what you want. And this went kind of all over the place. We started at the end, went the other way. When we started watching these movies. But the more and more I think about them, you could watch them on their own without any of the other movies, and they're all a complete thought. They all make sense. You don't have a hard time getting in there and figuring out what's going on because they're each their own individual story that fall around this main big story. Do you guys feel the same way, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that that's one way to approach something like this, right? There's a lot going on in the world at this point, when these aliens invade and everything kind of gets shut down and things like that. And so there are a lot of individual stories that can be told against that backdrop. Absolutely. And the nice thing about building a series that way is you can change the director and have a different voice, a different director bring you a story. You can change the main actors because it's not the same story. It's just happening in the same world. And I really appreciate that that's the approach that they took. The characters in this new movie don't tie in with the characters that we've seen in the previous 2 at all.
There's a couple of characters in day 1 that end up in 2, but it's just kind of like, oh, that's that person, instead of that's a major character.
Yeah. But if you haven't seen the other movies, it wouldn't matter at all. It gives you, if you have seen them, you have a little more invested. But if you haven't, I still think that there is enough there that you are pulled in and excited to see. It was funny because I looked at my watch and it was 15 minutes into the movie. And I just started laughing because I was like, oh, you can make me care about every single one of these characters 15 minutes into a movie, because we've been talking about Alkalite. And I know we keep just like nagging on the Alkalite, but it's just bad writing.
No, I don't care about any of those characters.
It has nothing to do with the story it's telling. It is bad writing. And when you get into a movie like this and how thoughtful it is, and I say this over and over, I try not to get into any movie that I go see before I go into it. I really want to be surprised. Now, I knew the basic premise of this because of the other movies, but I didn't go in to read what the storyline was, and I was so surprised by the main storyline that they gave us and how well it was portrayed, because it could have gone in a wrong direction. It was a very serious storyline in a totally other very serious situation, and it complemented everything so well, and it was so thoughtful. And like, the world is ending and this woman is terminally dying of cancer. Like, she's terminal. And so what would you do? What would you do? And I don't know. I want to go see it again. Dave hasn't seen it, and I want to take him to see it because I know there are things that I missed. But it's so detailed and so intricate in the surroundings and the characters and the stories, in her story, in her apartment. Like, every little thing, all of these thoughts are there. And for it to be like this horror thriller sci-fi movie, to have this much heart, is great.
Yeah, and I think the thing that this is so successful with as a series is you care about these characters. When Emily Blunt's character is pregnant and she's giving birth in a bathtub and can't make a noise, you are freaking out for this poor woman. The stepping on the nail scene.
I see that in my head every time.
Yeah. It's so cringe. I can't.
And one
we
of the
all
things,
felt
like,
that as an audience, though.
right? Yeah, everybody is like collectively like, oh. But it's so funny because we saw this together in the theater for the screening, and like there were some people walking up and down the stairs on the carpet, and we're like, quiet.
Yeah, I want to shout, keep it down over there, man. Like, stay in your seat.
You were afraid to shout. Like,
yeah, I wasn't gonna. Well, I don't typically in movie theaters anyway, but I especially wasn't going to in that movie because it was so quiet. But yeah, it was much more noticeable.
There was a little kid at LA Anime Expo last week, and me and his mom were talking about A Quiet Place, and he was like, I don't get why they call it a quiet place. Why are these aliens? Why do you have to be quiet? And I said, well, do you know what a T-Rex is? And he's like, yeah, I know what a T-Rex is. And I said, T-Rexes can't find you unless you make a noise. They can't see, right? And he's like, oh, and I said, this is a bunch of T-Rexes coming down and taking over the earth. And he's like, oh. I don't know if his mom was like thanking me or like, oh crap, now I got to take him to see. Yeah,
now we got to deal with the. We got to deal with the T-Rex nightmares now.
Well, no, like he wanted to go see it, and I don't know that it was. I mean, I don't know what he sees. He was like 10, but so maybe I don't know. There's kids out there that I think could watch this movie and be just fine. Yeah. But if T-Rexes were spiders, it would be, that kind of movie. So yeah.
But I one of the things that I loved so much about this, and the director, and we've talked about this film, he made Pig, which is with Nicolas Cage,
and
If is Krasinski.
But he was like a producer, or
yeah.
Him and Krasinski worked on both of these films together this year.
Oh, I didn't know he worked on If. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so it's the little details in this, and I love the fact that it's like an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half. It gets in, it tells a story, it gets out, it doesn't draw out. We're driving the whole way through, but it's the little details, because I've seen it twice now, and the second time I'm watching it, when she gets on the bus and they're driving into the city, the first thing that they pass is a giant cemetery that I don't know New York well, but I guess that's a pretty famous landmark. But it's a graveyard, and you're driving into the city right before the aliens attack, and you have a bunch of people in hospice care on the bus. And I'm like, that's just this little subtle little thing. And then, but it's like you said, Valerie, you're like immediately drawn into these characters. Within the first 5 minutes of the movie, we know that she's dying of cancer. We know that she's at a hospice. We know that she's angry because she doesn't feel like she wants to go, but she's kind of given up and she's despondent. And she wants to go into the city and get pizza and we're invested just on that information.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it too is the acting work that she does. She's phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah, it's one of her, I think, best roles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from the beginning. I mean, when she's sitting in the group and she's sharing her poetry that she had read. I love it when we portray these characters in these really crummy situations. Very real. Like, she was in a crummy situation and she recognized it was a crummy situation and that she hated everything about where she was at. And you could immediately identify with that because I would probably feel the same way, you know?
Right.
And I just think that sets the tone for who she is and her character. And you find out later she's a famous poet and everything, but to me, that's where I started to get drawn in on her character. So,
and that's within the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. It's right away.
And sometimes you don't get that much character development in an entire movie. You know, you're by the end of the movie, sometimes you're like, well, especially when it comes to like disaster movies or horror movies. Sometimes a director will just be like, we need a bunch of people because we're going to just kill them all off.
Yeah.
And instead of having a whole bunch of people that are getting picked off one by one, we're following her. And then later we're following her with Joseph Quinn's character. And of course, the best cat, Frodo.
Yes.
We're following their story and we're concentrating on them instead of these other people are just cannon fodder and we're just waiting for a creative way to kill them off.
Well, and I think that's because in a lot of disaster movies, the focus is really on the big story, the big event that's happening. And this is much more focus on a small story, her story. This is basically her quest for pizza in New York City. It just happens to be during the end of the world. And I think that's where you get that incredible character development. And they have to make us care about her as a character quickly because otherwise that small story doesn't work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and trying to find a pizza, getting your pizza in New York, like that is a quest everybody should go on. It's some of the best pizza in the United States. It's ruined pizza for me really anywhere else other than Boston and Chicago. So it's a legitimate, like, end of the world, getting your last piece of pizza. But of course, she has a really awesome story behind it as well that we learn, which makes it even better. And it's just those little details that they keep like adding on to that we don't know. So we like the pizza idea. And so we're going with it, and then they add on the pizza, and then we're like, "Oh my gosh, I love that even more."
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you get those hints of her life before, as she goes, like when they go to her apartment, and you realize, you know, it's a few minutes before she reveals this is where I live, this was my apartment, but you realize that's what it is, and that she's got this really nice posh place in the city where she could live, but she's stuck in this hospice place with Oscar who poops his pants, and like it just adds to the depth of her character.
And again, it's the little moments because like they get to the apartment and she bends down and looks underneath the mat to see if the key's there. And then they have to break it down. And I love that there was, and I had forgotten, it had been a while since I had seen A Quiet Place 1 or 2. And so I had forgotten about they could talk underneath running water because it muffles the sound. So at first I'm like, okay, that was really clever. And then later realizing, oh wait, they're just going back with what was already there, but it works.
But again, they put that in for people that had never seen it and to how they discovered that. And I'm sure that information, you know, passes through that scene with the kids under the fountain. Like how, like those kids were so smart and now they're dead.
Right.
Yeah.
And do we know they're dead? I don't remember them dying.
Yeah, they went in the direction that everybody died.
Yeah.
Maybe they got away.
We don't see him. No, they didn't
get
away.
Dead.
I think they make it pretty clear that they don't get away.
I'm gonna hold out hope.
Okay. You can.
You can do that. Okay.
You can make up parts of the story that weren't there.
Whatever
That's totally fine, Tracy. You can do whatever you want. It's a fictional story.
But again, we see those kids for how long? Maybe 60 seconds. And that moment where they don't even talk to each other, I mean, she talks to them a little bit, but it's really just that, like, we see you, I'm going in there,
the candy bar.
you know, they figure it out, and it's just, like, it's all those little moments that you don't think about. In a crisis like that, you're going to have people that are rolling down the street in their, you know, their wheelchairs. You're going to have people that are trying to get out of hospitals. You're going to have people that can't get out of places. And you're going to have kids separated from their parents. It's all of this stuff that you don't see because it's a monster movie, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I liked quite a bit is when the monsters, I mean, we get some really cool monster moments. You've got the helicopter shot and they're crawling up over the building. I love the shot in the glass skyscraper where the camera pans up and you can see them just falling and it hits the glass and breaks through. But I really like the fact, especially at the beginning, when she's on the bus and the attack first happens and everything gets clouded in this cloud of dust, a la very much homage to 9/11 type imagery. And that makes it even creepier because those things are just coming out of the mist, out of the dark. And Valerie and I talked about this, reminded me of the movie The Mist in a lot of ways. But they could come from any direction at any time and you have no idea what's happening.
Well, and at that point, you don't know that if you make a noise, that's how they find you.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a little bit to realize that's the case. And it's even harder, I think, in a setting like New York City to realize that's what's drawing them as a noise, because there's noise everywhere. You're almost safer being in that environment because you can sneak away because everybody's being louder than you are.
Yeah.
Except the people going up and down the stairs. They were louder.
Yeah, they were very loud on the carpet.
Yeah.
There was recently an interview with Lupita, and they showed her a picture of the alien from Alien. And the Death Angels from her movie, and they're like, which one do you think is better? And she's like, what's a Death Angel? And her co-star is like, that's the monster from our movie. And I'm like, oh, that's what they're called. I didn't know they were Death Angels either, but it makes sense. They're dropping from the sky, but I don't know that they're angels unless it's like the angel of death, right? Death Angels, but
yeah, I don't know. That's
I
what they were called.
Them that.
It's a great name for the monster. I just 3 movies in had no idea that was.
Yeah, so she's like, what's a Death Angel? He's like, that's our monster.
Well, and for those, we've talked about it together, but for those that don't know, one of my favorite stories about the making of this movie is Lupita, the main actress, had a incredible phobia of cats. And so when she was cast, she said to the director, can we make it a dog instead of a cat? And he said, no, it's going to be a cat. And she asked him, can we do a CGI cat? And he said, no, I don't have the budget. We're doing a real cat. And she said she was terrified of cats because she thinks of like panthers and tigers and these animals that are going to kill her. She went to therapy for a month. And she said it took her a week before she could even put out her hand to let the cat sniff it.
Wow.
And that's how bad it was. And she said by the time they filmed, and the 2 cats, it's Nico and I think Sebastian, I can't remember, but I know one's named Nico.
Yeah.
Anyway, the 2 cats that are in the movie, she's like, they are as chill in real life as they are in the movie. She's like, people are like, cats aren't really like that. These cats really are like that. And she said by the time she was done, she fell in love with these cats and now has adopted at least 1 cat, maybe more. And
oh my gosh, she's now a cat lady.
She said, I'm filling up my Instagram with pictures of my cats and I'm the crazy cat lady now. And I just think that's so great.
Yeah.
Well, and I have so many people that love cats. Tracy, you're one of those. And I don't hate cats. I'm just not a cat person. I'm never going to hurt a cat. If a cat needed help, I'm going to help the cat. But halfway through this movie, I was just like, I have never wanted to be a friend with a cat more than by watching this movie. I'm like, I want to be a friend with this cat, except for when the cat takes him into like the nesting of the aliens. Like, what the crap are you doing, dude? Like, you're taking me all the way into here. But yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, but I will say, if they had changed it to a dog, that dog would have blown their cover like 5 minutes into it. I mean, I love dogs, but they like this cat was like next level smart and quiet, and a dog would have blown it.
Well, and
At
there
one
was a
point,
great
though, I
scene
wish
with
it
the
would have
cat.
opened up its mouth really
There's a
wide
great scene
and
with
eaten one of the Death Angels.
That happens in like the MCU, but I don't
You
think
want
that's
to
what they're going for here.
It would have been cool. Don't deny it.
all of a sudden this becomes a Secret Avengers movie.
Just one moment.
I would have
Just
walked out. I would have been so mad. Like, why does
throw it
everything
down
have
as
to tie in?
popcorn.
Yeah.
But no, there's a great scene too where there's the cat running, and this is just before we meet Joseph Quinn's character, and the cat's chasing a mouse, and it's so metaphorical and symbolic of these aliens are basically looking at us as the mouse, and they're chasing us. But it's also, this is just how nature is. Like, the cat's natural instinct is to play with the mouse and chase it. The mouse gets away and the cat moves on. And then it's funny because then we get the flooded subway, and Joseph Quinn character comes out and I had a discussion with my dad. I took him to go see it, and afterwards he was like, I don't like how that guy just showed up. Like, we didn't know anything about him and he just showed up out of nowhere. And I was like, well, that's how this would happen.
Yeah.
You're walking and you bump into this person and they've done things that you have no idea about, and now they're just here. And I thought that was a great part of this.
Well, and it was such a clever way to show us too, right from the beginning. This guy is really a fish out of water. He is out of his depth, out of his environment. And that initial scene when he comes up makes that so clear so quickly, which you have to. This movie is an hour and 40 minutes long for a runtime, which is not very long. And you've got to get a lot of story in there. So you've got to do stuff like that to get us on board with these characters. But to your dad's side,
right?
I thought he was kind of a creeper at first, Joseph Quinn's character. I'm like, what is this dude's deal? But he grew on me very quickly, and obviously their relationship.
Yeah. As soon as you get to know him and you see his character and how he acts around Lupita, he's actually the lost puppy to this cat that is, walking around with confidence. Because cats are usually outside. That's where they live. And this lost puppy comes up, does not know how to live in this environment, and needs Lupita, who has nothing to lose. And he has no idea, but she walks around like she's not afraid of anything, because really, like, what is she going to be afraid of?
Right. Within minutes of him showing up, and we're going to get into spoiler territory here. So if you haven't seen it, and you don't want it spoiled, then you may want to stop listening at this point. I don't know. We haven't avoided spoilers up to now, but
nothing too major until now.
Yeah, but I'm going to here right now. But the minute he showed up, or within a few minutes of him showing up, I started to think there's only one way this movie ends. And it ends with her dying. I'm like, they can't build this the way that they're building it and have it end any other way. If they do, then it's cheap, and it just doesn't. Well, I know, but like, I was like, she's going to sacrifice herself in some way to help him get out. This movie cannot end any other way. If it does, then they've wasted the whole movie.
I mean, she kind of I Am Legends it, but like for reals.
Yeah,
like there's no coming back.
Yeah, right. And it's these little moments, like when they're at the apartment and they scream during the thunderstorm, and they're both just letting out this anger and pain and fear. And then she realizes she doesn't have any more pain patches. Like, she does not have her medication that helps her get through it. And then he goes and gets that for her. And so it's these little developmental moments where that helps build these characters, and you care about them and they care about each other. So when we get to that final moment where she's like, take the cat, run, and she starts making noise to draw them away from him, that means so much more, because you're so invested in both of these people, and they're invested in each other.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so much about his character as well, is because we learn that when it comes to him taking care of himself just for him, he has no idea how to do it. He doesn't have courage. He doesn't know where to go. He's lost. But the minute he meets her, it's now distracting of what's going on, and he can go get things for her, right? He can go get the meds. He can go look for the cat. He can do these things, but so that connection is giving him courage, or else he'd be dead already.
Oh,
man,
for
like
sure.
he would be done.
And I love the couple of scenes where he freezes up and she's got, it's okay, breathe, quiet, breathe, and he's okay.
Yeah.
Because we'd all be having a panic attack in that moment,
for sure.
right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting. We've seen 2 movies this year that are kind of in this dystopian future, very different dystopian futures. But we saw Civil War, and then we saw A Quiet Place Day One, and Civil War to me focused a lot on the divisions that happen in a situation like this and how divided the people have become. This one focused much more on how 2 strangers just help each other. They don't know each other from Adam, and they're helping each other, and it focuses much more on how people come together in situations like that. Now, there's somewhere in this world and in this universe of A Quiet Place where there is division and there is people fighting for the scraps and everything else like we saw in Civil War. But I appreciated that this story was about how the people came together. And in the Civil War world, there are people who are coming together. We see glimpses of it, but
right.
Yeah. Well, and we see over and
That's
over
a great
again
analogy.
that people are helping her. And it comes back towards the end. We have a couple of characters that help her get into the church and get out, and they know her cat, and the cat almost screws all of them. I have to say, I was pretty angry at the cat when he almost kills all of the people that are in there. But that was a moment where I was like, yeah, I was right about cats, and then it redeemed itself. But
I was right there with you, Val. I was thinking she just needs to let the cat die because the cat is going to end up getting them all killed.
Yeah.
So,
but then the cat redeemed itself. But
yeah,
there's that moment where you have all of those people in that building, and they're all being quiet for each other, and they're all there together. And a bunch of people go up to the roof of this building, and one of the guys starts panicking, and they're trying to get him to be quiet. And in that moment, if it's between everyone in a building or one person dying, what are you going to choose at that moment?
And the look, I can't ever say his name, the actor's name, but the look on his face when he pushes the guy against the wall and cracks the guy's head open, and the look of regret yet relief on his face is just so good.
Well, because in that moment, his son is watching how he handles the situation, and he knows. And when he does that and it's done and he looks and his son has gone away, that regret and remorse of what have I become? What have I done? But I'm thinking, dude, I don't know that I would have chosen to do anything different. Like, I'm not advocating killing people, but like, I don't know what else you do in that situation.
Yeah.
And it's so believable that somebody would be having a complete panic attack and have no control. After what you've seen and what you've experienced in this time period, no way.
Yeah.
So
I want to say it's or oh my gosh, I don't say it well either, but it's Dejam Hansu, I think is how you say it. And I love him so much. I was hoping he was going to be in the movie more.
Yeah.
But he's only in these couple little moments, but those moments are like big deal moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had only seen Joseph Quinn in Stranger Things, and I'm not a huge Stranger Things fan. It's okay, but I don't love it. But I thought he was really good. And then I saw him in this, and then I know that he's coming up in Gladiator 2, and I'm like, I'm becoming a huge fan of this guy because he and Lupita, both of them, just such good performances.
Well, and this character that he plays is so different from the character in Stranger Things. And I get, and it's funny when we say stuff like that because these are actors, and of course they're going to play different characters, but it just shows he played both of those characters really, really well. And I just think he's got a lot of depth.
I mean, some actors do decide to choose similar roles. Like they put themselves in a category or they allow themselves to be cast in that category, but some do have a plan and they're like, I want to be, like Hugh Jackman has said it. I wanted to be, in these romantic comedies, comedy dramas. And now he's doing a lot of, different kinds of roles in comedies because he says that's where, he shines. And so,
he still wants to go perform on Broadway.
Yeah. And so then there are these actors like, I don't want to do the same role twice. And they're out there trying all these things. And sometimes it wins and sometimes it's, it doesn't. But I respect both ways. Like, what you're good at and you stick with it, or, you're taking all these chances either way. But yeah, I really admire all the different things that he's doing because he has been around for a while, but he's just barely kind of, people are starting to notice because he's getting a chance to have these bigger roles. But I like how they chose their main characters. Like Lupita has been around and she's been in a lot of amazing dramas and she's an amazing actress, but I don't know that she's as well known to a mass audience.
Right.
And I think this is more of her mass audience role because it's a movie that really is for everyone. It's not it is a specific genre, but it's more of a wide range genre.
It's a relationship movie set inside a sci-fi horror film.
Yes. To me, it's very War of the Worlds to me, like original story War of the Worlds, which is very cool because you do have those emotional moments in that, but then you also have these very real alien moments, but and then it's got these heartfelt moments in between these characters, this is not a pun, they're very quiet characters. They're not these overwhelming they're not superstars. Like I've loved Lupita for a long time, and there are some people that Lupita would be a superstar to them because of the amazing work that she's done. But I know there's another audience of people that have never seen her in the Black Panther or Us or 12 Years a Slave or Little Monsters because they're very specific. She was great in The Woman King, which is a fantastic movie. She's in The Force Awakens. A lot of people don't remember that. But this is kind of her movie. She's always been kind of the supporting role in a lot of movies. This is hers. And I think such good casting. Such good casting.
And I like what you said there, Valerie, because not only are the actors very human, but the roles are too. These aren't people that are like jumping from building to building. They're not punching the alien in the face a la Will Smith. They're just trying to survive. She's a terminal cancer patient. He's this British nerdy guy, and they just trying to get out of there with the cat so they can get pizza. And I think one of the most wonderful moments in the movie is when they finally get to the jazz club. Well, they get to the pizza place, and the pizza place has been destroyed. And there is this beautiful shot of her sitting on the ground cross-legged in front of a manhole cover that has been blown off that has fire coming out of it. And he just goes and sits down and puts his arm around her, and the camera just kind of lingers there for a minute. And then they go into the jazz club, and then he finds another pizza joint and writes Patsy's on the box and brings it back. And then she's talking about like her dad, and she's getting kind of emotional and sad. And then he does this impromptu magic trick in front of nobody, but it's this beautiful moment. And it's like, it's so great because you wouldn't think you'd get something like that in a big action adventure disaster movie. And that's why I loved this movie so much. It's the things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although that scene was when I thought, oh, dang, they're both going to die. They're all going to die.
Right? How long has that pizza been out?
Well, I wasn't worried necessarily about the pizza.
I was.
but just, it was such a poignant movie that I thought, or scene that I thought, oh, they're going to just crush us. They're just going to crush us all here at the end. And they didn't, but
they gave us that little ray of hope. The Mist, Ellie and I afterwards were talking about it. The Mist has one of it might be the bleakest ending I have ever seen. But in this one, and I think that it fits that we get a little bit of a happy ending because they've talked about the humanity and surviving and experiencing. And can we talk about the ending quick? Because I thought that was
Tracy,
beautiful.
No.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it this one time.
Well, I love the fact that
but you're on thin ice, mister.
We all thought that she was like going to get off during the part where she's making noise so he can get to the boat, right?
Right.
As we're watching this, we're thinking this is where she goes, and she doesn't. And then the fact that later she's wearing the headphones and listening to this music that she loves, and then she decides, okay, I'm good. It's my time.
Yeah.
And unplugs the headphone, and the music blares. And we just cut to black. The fact that we didn't see them attack, we know what's going to happen, but we don't see it. We don't need to. I just thought that was so beautifully handled.
Well, and she's to me, that's a... Go ahead.
I was going to say, she's probably in Central Park with the two kids and taking care of them. And they're all still alive, Tracy.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Reheating up some pizza and having it for dinner. No, but that was on a note that probably had nothing to do with the movie, but for me, as somebody who has watched several people die from cancer, to me that moment was so poignant because she got to decide.
Yeah.
She could have gotten on that boat and she could have tried to live out the last whatever weeks of her life and been in pain and misery, but she went out on her own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was this emotional moment where, a lot of people don't get to do that, right? I mean, a lot of people in that movie, they died when the aliens decided, but, but when we're sick and they gave us this story, they didn't have to give us the story of a terminally ill cancer patient. It could have been anybody's story, but that's the story they decided to give us and tell us. And I do believe, again, that the writers and the director were just so thoughtful in every single decision that they made, because you have to be with an hour, 50-minute movie, that I think they did mean something by it. And just like Tracy hopes that those kids are eating an ice cream somewhere with a goldfish, I want to think that that was a little bit of message to people that don't understand that when you're sick, you're still human, and you get to decide, what you want to do. And for me, that was just a beautiful moment, not only because she had the courage to be a freaking rock star and be like, gee, here I go, but also, if you don't want to suffer, you shouldn't have to suffer.
Yeah. So we're going to get to grades in just a minute, but while we're here talking about her as a cancer patient, and that was one part of this movie that is very, very real. And it's something that has touched, I think, everybody's lives at this point. I think everybody knows someone who has fought cancer, and I think everybody knows someone who has lost their fight with cancer. Tracy is running in September a half marathon and a 10K.
5K,
no, what
10K.
are you running?
5K.
Not doing a half in September.
5K, 10K. But he is raising money for that. And we are going to be talking about, in January, Tracy and Val are running a 5K, a 10K.
No 10K.
5K and half marathon.
Yep.
Okay.
Valerie's first half marathon.
So over the next few months, we are going to talk about this. We are raising money for the American Cancer Society. There's a lot of things that people have to go through when they're battling cancer, from getting a ride to the hospital to being able to afford their care, all sorts of things. There's research that's constantly being done, and American Cancer Society really helps to provide funding for a lot of that as much as they can. And so every dollar that you donate, we'll put a link to Tracy's donor page or fundraiser page in the description for this video, as Val and Tracy have their new one for the one in January. We'll get that up as well. But every dollar you donate there goes straight to the American Cancer Society. It's all done through their website and everything, so we don't see the money at all. It goes right there, and that all goes to help someone in their battle against cancer. So if you are able to and would like to, we would welcome any donations there to help with that fight.
Beautifully said.
So that being said, let's give this movie a grade. I'm feeling good about this one, grade wise. Not.
You think we might have a couple of positive reviews to give on this one?
I think. Well, I haven't heard us say a whole lot of negative about the movie, so.
Jake, why don't you kick us off?
Sure, I'll kick us off. This was a surprise for me. I went into it really. I'm not a huge fan of prequels, but we talked about why this works as a prequel because it's not telling us a story that ties in with the other ones, other than it's happening on the beginning of this invasion that we're seeing. But I was really, really pleasantly surprised. It was well crafted, well done. To me, it was up there as one of the best ones in the series. I don't know that it beats the first one for me because it was so different when that one came out.
Mm-hmm.
But I give this one an A. I think that's where this one sits for me.
Valerie?
This one is an A+ for me.
Plus?
There isn't one thing I would cut from this movie. If anything, I'm like, may I have some more, please? Like, like give me a little bit more. But I didn't feel like the ending wasn't well. It's not like it was missing anything. I just was like, I would consume more if they had more, and I wouldn't complain about it. The writing, again, so thoughtful. I can't say it enough. Just detailed, thoughtful, believable. Like, I believed every single character in this movie, from the main characters to the lady that goes out into the middle of the road, that everyone is hiding, and she knows if she screams she's going to die, but she wanted to find her loved one and see if they were out there, so she screams his name. Like, everything is believable. Maybe stupid on that lady's part, but totally believable that she would do it. Some of the best shots when the cat goes into, leads him into their nest, and you see this lava, and you're like, what is this place? And I'm like, does he have, is he on the high ground? Like, what's happening over here? And it's just so cool. Yeah, from beginning to end, I loved it. I wouldn't change anything. I would watch it again. I am going to watch it again, so it's an A+.
Yeah,
nice.
I was a little hesitant going into this one because I'm like, they're advertising it heavily, and that either means that they think they've got a really big hit, or they think they have a stinker and they're just going to try and flood the market and get those early box office returns in the first weekend. And luckily, Michael Sarnowski, who is somebody that I am going to be watching for all of his future work. I've seen 2 of your movies. Both were fantastic. I can't wait to see more of what you do. And I love what you said, Valerie, because it's sometimes the movie ends and we're like, you could trim out this scene. You could lose a good 15, 20 minutes. And in this one, it's like, it's just so tight. I don't know of what you would cut. I don't think it really needed to have anything added, but I'm with you. I want more of these kind of movies. If you can
didn't want to be done with them. I wanted to spend more time with them. It didn't. There was no missing story. I want more time.
Exactly. And I'm okay, because sometimes you see a franchise and you're like, okay, we've run its course. We have milked everything we can out of the series. There's nothing left to give. And in this one, I'm like you said, Jake, there's so many different stories that you could tell in so many different ways in this interesting world, that if it's done this thoughtfully and this creatively, I'm here for it. And I am not a prequel fan. This might be the first prequel where I'm like, you know what? This is as good, if not better, than the original. And as like we said earlier, each one is separate. And so it's kind of hard to say which is better. They're so close to each other. I'd say all 3 of them are an A. I give this one an absolute A. Absolutely.
AAA rated. There you go.
And I didn't think we would. I thought it was going to kind of be a B-ish level for me. And I came out of it going, I want to see this again now.
I would have been happy based on my expectations for it to be a B. So it was an A. It won me over.
Yeah.
And it was probably Frodo's fault that it won me over.
Can we have a best cat Oscar category for this year? Just for this year?
Just for this year, just to give it to...
I think we would have to have a 5-year category.
Fly Me to the Moon has a really good cat. He's not as good as Frodo, but he's a very good cat in that one as well. So the cats are making a film resurgence, so I'm excited.
I've mentioned this in my written review, but kind of feel bad for Elijah Wood. He's got to now settle for being the second best Frodo on screen.
But both Frodos take you on a great adventure.
They do.
Very good
Absolutely.
point. Very good point.
Absolutely.
Very loyal. Yeah.
They get into some mischief.
Yeah.
And they get you into some trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
But you love them.
They even wear things around their neck that get them in trouble. Like she had the little bells on her neck. He had the ring around his neck. Wow. It's all making sense now.
When they were doing the red carpet, they had the two cats on the red carpet, and they had little bow ties, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so freaking adorable!"
That's awesome. Yeah, the cat steals the show. It made me want to get a cat. I had to get over that real quick because I have a son that would have been ecstatic if I came home with a cat, but a wife who would have been very upset. So
choose your battle wisely.
Yeah. So, but there you go. A Quiet Place Day 1. If you haven't had a chance to go see it, go out and see it. I mean, really,
see it on the big screen.
Yeah, there's just something about how quiet the theater got with this movie, other than the examples that we gave. But like, there were moments where it was so quiet, and a movie that's so powerful that it makes you just that many people be quiet for so long. It's pretty impressive, and it's a cool feeling. And movies are a communal experience.
You can feel everybody to go see them. Yes.
Go see them in the theater. So there you go. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. You can also follow us here on YouTube. You can subscribe, click the notification so you always know when a new episode has dropped. You can also follow us on any of the podcast places that you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, doesn't matter. You can follow us anywhere. We always appreciate your feedback and your support. And until next time, we won't see you at the movies. Bye.